You know that moment when you open an email and the world sort of tilts? Not the good kind of tilt, not the you want a free vacation tilt. The other one. The one where the words on your screen rearrange your entire understanding of what's been happening to you. And you sit there staring at your laptop like it just told you the sky is green and dogs are a myth. I received an email from the Husk. Remember the Husk? The empty shell go between de facto group leader from episode 4. The person whose sole function in my life was to manage my access to people who should have been talking to me directly. That email contained information. Information that didn't match what I'd been told. Information that contradicted months, years of carefully constructed narratives. And when I read it, I felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Clarity. Terrifying, nauseating clarity. Welcome back to Everyone Wants to Be Me, Identity Theft Blows. We're nearly at the halfway mark of season 1, Hookers, Cookers, Police, and Thieves. And things are about to escalate. Up to now, my story has been about slow erosion, the drip, drip, drip of manipulation, isolation, financial weirdness, iffy taxes. But every slow burn has an inflection point, a moment where that drip becomes a flood. For me, that moment involved an email, a trip to Europe, and the realization that my entire employment situation was, well, not what I thought it was. Today we're going to cover work, the obfuscations, the blame shifting, the disrespect, the doubt, and a letter that served as a Rosetta Stone for everything that had been happening. So buckle up, because this one's a ride. Let's talk about work, because here's something people don't often connect to identity theft: your employment. My work situation had been getting increasingly weird, and I don't mean my boss is annoying weird. I mean something is structurally wrong and no one will explain it. Weird. Obfuscations everywhere. Questions about my role met with vague answers. Responsibilities shifted without explanation. The kind of professional environment where you start keeping a folder of emails just in case, but you're not even sure just in case of what. There was blame, a whole lot of blame, things that weren't my fault being attributed to me with the casual confidence of someone who knows the real story but has decided to write a different one. And there was disrespect. The kind that's just deniable enough that if you called it out, you'd look like the problem. I didn't mean it like that. You're being sensitive. Nobody else has an issue with it. Gaslighting. Professional grade, workplace approved gaslighting. The kind where you leave meetings thinking, am I crazy, or did they just blame me for a thing I had nothing to do with? And the answer is no, you're not crazy. And yes, they did. The European trip added another layer of surrealism. I was traveling for the holidays again, and the trip was steeped in the same push-pull dynamics I'd experienced in Paris. Moments of normalcy interrupted by episodes of inexplicable weirdness. Personal interactions that didn't add up. Financial arrangements that seemed designed to confuse rather than compensate. I'm being vague here on purpose. partly for legal reasons and partly because the specific details matter less than the pattern. And the pattern was this: my work life was being sabotaged from the inside, slowly, subtly, and with enough plausible deniability that I couldn't point to any single thing and say, that right there is wrong. It was death by 1,000 paper cuts, professionally and personally speaking. And then I got the email. The Husk sent me an email. I don't know why. Maybe it was a mistake. I don't think it was a mistake. Maybe for a second she grew a conscience. Maybe she thought I already knew. But the email contained information, specifics about people, actions, and decisions that directly contradicted what I had been told by the people involved in this whole thing. I'm going to be careful about what I share here because this is still relevant to ongoing matters. But the essence of the email was this: things I had been told were happening, weren't happening. Things I'd been told weren't happening were. People who claimed to have my interests at heart didn't. And the employment weirdness, the financial manipulation, the social isolation, they weren't separate problems. They were the same problem, viewed from different angles. Reading that email was like those optical illusions where you stare at a picture of a vase and suddenly it becomes two faces. My entire life, the last several years, snapped into a different configuration. The vase was two faces. The coincidences were coordinated. The bad luck was sabotage. I want to talk about what clarity feels like when it arrives too late. Or maybe not too late, but later than you would like. It doesn't feel like relief. It doesn't feel like vindication. It feels like grief. You grieve the time you lost trusting people who were betraying you. You grieve the version of yourself who thought the world was kinder than it was. You grieve the relationships that you now understand were never real. And then, if you're lucky, and if you're stubborn, and I am spectacularly stubborn, you get angry. And that anger is a gift, because the anger says, this happened to you, but it does not define you, and it is not going to continue. That email from the Husk was the match. The fire would come later. Let's get into something most identity theft resources don't cover well enough: the connection between your employment and your identity. Your employer has access to some of your most sensitive information: your social security number, your bank account for direct deposit, your home address, your emergency contacts, tax withholding information. If someone within your professional ecosystem has bad intentions, they have the keys to your financial kingdom. So here's what to watch for. 1, payroll anomalies. If your paycheck doesn't match what you expect, even by small amounts, investigate immediately. Don't assume it's a rounding error. Small, consistent payroll discrepancies can indicate that someone is diverting funds or manipulating your tax withholdings. 2, employment verification fraud. Someone can use your identity to get a job, which in my case has happened a lot, apparently. This means their income gets reported to the IRS under your Social Security number. This can trigger tax bills, benefit reductions, and a cascade of financial problems that trace back to a job you never worked. 3. Workplace gaslighting as cover. If your work environment suddenly becomes hostile, confusing, or chaotic, especially if it coincides with other red flags in your life, consider the possibility that the workplace dysfunction is part of a larger pattern. Destabilizing someone professionally is an effective way to destabilize them financially and emotionally. So here's some action steps. Number 1, log into your Social Security Administration account at ssa.gov and check your earnings record. Does the income listed match what you actually earned? Are there employers you don't recognize? This is free, y'all, and it takes 5 minutes. Number 2, request a copy of your W-2 directly from the IRS using Form 4506-T and compare it to what your employer gave you. They should match. If they don't, someone has been filing documents in your name. Number 3, if your workplace feels deliberately chaotic, start documenting that. Save your emails. Take notes on the meetings that you're attending. Create a paper trail that exists outside of your work system, because if your work system is compromised, your records there might not be safe either. After I read that email, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I went home and I baked. Not because I was being strong, not because I was in denial, but because when the ground opens up beneath you and everything you thought was true turns out to be a lie, you need to do something with your hands, something real, something that produces a tangible result. So I made whoopie pies, and I will post the recipe on my Substack account. Everyone wants to be me, and for y'all to have actually access to. Whoopie pies don't take a lot of ingredients. They're simple enough, and when everything is complicated, just, bake something that's simple. The simplicity is the point. Baking won't fix your identity theft. It won't unmask the people who betrayed you, but it will give you something warm to hold while you figure out what your next move is. And sometimes, y'all, that's enough. So today we covered the intersection of employment sabotage and identity theft. We talked about obfuscation, blame shifting, and professional gaslighting as tools to keep victims disoriented. And we talked about the moment of clarity, the email, the letter, the Rosetta Stone, that snaps everything into focus. So your action items after listening here. Number 1, check your SSA earnings record at ssa.gov. It's free, 5 minutes, do it now. Number 2, compare your W-2s to IRS records and look for any mismatches. Number 3, if your workplace feels deliberately chaotic, start building an external paper trail. In our next episode, hello, it's Shayla. Are you there? 12 months of robocalls. 12 months. Money weirdness intensifying, friends disappearing, and the onset of hypervigilance, the state where you jump every time your phone rings because you don't know if it's a friend, a scammer, or someone pretending to be one while actually being the other. Share this episode with anyone who's ever felt gaslit at work. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Everyone Wants to Be Me. Leave a review. Every review helps another identity theft victim find this show. Check the show notes for those Social Security Administration links, employment fraud resources, and that whoopie pie recipe. I'm Grace Mangum. Everyone wants to be me, and they even want my job. Which, considering how chaotic my work life has been, shows spectacularly poor taste. See you next time.
Not really here. You can see right through me. It's not really clear what has happened to me. I'm the invisible man. I have no face. My soul has no home. There is no space. I can call my own.